Yes, greetings everyone. I'm very happy to hear such lovely talks by you, Michael, and Harinder, with such devotion, and a beautiful singer. I love to see such devotion from devotees of the Lord. It's so wonderful among all the other problems of the world that something like this exists. So with Master's blessings, may it long continue. And I thank you all for your seva. I appreciate every contributor because you spend your time to help others. And this is something very valuable from the Lord's point of view. And so it's much appreciated. So with Master's love, I greet you all. I'm very happy to be invited here today to speak with you, to give a little talk about something very special regarding the means by which, in a practical way, you can attain success on the holy path of sadhana. There's a lot of talk about what one should do and what one shouldn't do, mostly based upon historic accounts of successes and so on. But I think for the modern age, the path is much simpler. And there's a lot of misunderstanding about what one should do and what one shouldn't do. So I'm hoping that this little talk, although very brief, will help one to attain some real success on this path by those who have attained the same themselves using these methods. So one who has attained success can tell others how to do it. Others will just recite the theories and the concepts. So from that point of view, I'd like to first introduce myself. I've been asked to introduce myself to the viewers and listeners, and I'm going to keep it succinct. Now, because my life has been interesting and varied with several masters, and my journey has been, let's say, an interesting one, I have written down a summary by request so I can keep it short. So before I actually begin the satsang, I'm going to read to you a little biography, a very small account of myself and my journey, and then I'll begin the proper satsang for you. So please excuse me while I read this in order to keep it succinct. My name is Brother James Jason Mann. I was born in London to mixed parentage and grew up in a household of very few people, as my parents were refugees from Europe and India. Thus, we had no relatives here, just myself, my brother, and my sister. I was the odd one out, as you shall discover. As my father was a diplomat, we lived in a large house with all the privileges of wealth, but in isolation. In that circumstance of isolation between the ages of 4 and 12, I had my own large attic or roof house room, with my main company or companions being a colony of ants, several plants, some with caterpillars and butterflies, which I adored very much, and the occasional visiting garden spider who would come to in the corner of the room near the roof space, plus a rabbit called Cheeky. So those were my youthful companions. Thus, I established a great relationship with non-humans, even to the point where I felt I could communicate with them telepathically. This gave me the realization that all living beings, all living forms, had the same right to exist as myself. They were equal to myself. They all had feelings, they all had life stories, they all had a right to exist. Meanwhile, my encounters with other humans were not so peaceful, and thus I became disillusioned with them, as I generally found them to be negative, selfish, cruel, and unvirtuous. They delighted in harming and even killing each other for simple gain, were greedy in amassing great wealth to the detriment of others, and were lustful for the sensual pleasures of drugs, meat, and wine, etc. That turned them into human animals, not human beings. They were not peaceful, loving, kind, or compassionate, all of which were values I had embraced and lived by. I was also an avid reader and was thirsty for knowledge of everything, but particularly the truth of all existence. Hence, I read countless books, similar philosophies, and books on religious texts, hoping to find the answers to my deepest questions. As a child, I was always asking, why am I here? What am I doing in such a place where beings do not share the same values as I? So I had a real dilemma living among the world, which is perhaps why I chose the favor of animals, plants, and insects as my companions early on. So I started my earnest seeking for the high truth. Eventually, I came across the path of Santmat at the age of 18, which answered most of my queries. But more importantly, it resonated within my heart an absolute truth. I recognized this as truth. It self-validated itself within me. Thus began my journey towards the higher truth realization of the soul, and that of the Lord of the soul. I was initiated by Babaji of Bias in 1993, one of his first initiates, when I was in my 20s. Then by Supreme Master Ching Hai in 2014, and then by Sant Ishwarji in 2018. At my request, as he said that I was already initiated and was a special soul, so didn't need it. He then went on to explain about our mission together over many lifetimes, that I was always the scribe and the silent teacher, while he was the talker and communicator. But this time, he rather commandingly instructed me to represent his holy mission and write texts, give satsangs, and create YouTube videos, as well as answer questions, since in his own words, I was the man for the job. Being a natural recluse, I was dead against this, because my own experiences within had shown to me that we are all equal, and so no one should be idolized higher than others. Only instruction and guidance should be given. Nevertheless, my protests were unheard, and Master Ishwarji instead further hinted at a more important saviour to come, upon which he could take a vacation, as he said. During my many subsequent meetings with Ishwarji, he variously explained my significance here with him and the importance of the work that lay ahead for me, all of which surprised me. Indeed, there are many wonderful things I could talk about regarding my experiences and messages from Ishwarji and other masters, but that is a story for another day. My eventual enlightenment came to a head in 2018 upon Great Master's holy grace through Ishwarji. From that time on, I have followed Master's instructions to complete the seva given to me in this lifetime, and I hope to serve the Sangat well. Nevertheless, I still do not seek any praise or recognition for what I do, as I am merely an instrument through which the Supreme Lord has chosen to deliver its divine message to humanity in a modern age. Hence, I sit before you in this humble role today. Now, as Ishwarji once said to me, you will become the means by which practical instruction, and he emphasized this practical instruction, and realization will come to all whom you meet who are true seekers. I later understood what this meant. Ishwarji told us to set up the International Spiritual Truth Association in the UK, called ISTAWK.com, in order to give a framework for Master's further mission here on Earth. Therefore, my talk to you today is about a very practical problem that many seekers and initiates have about how to live a truly spiritual way of life that benefits them the most. Indeed, living the promised enchanted life, blessed with actual knowing and experience, with true love and devotion at its heart, not mere blind faith, emotional love, and a life plagued with desires. So let's now begin the talk. I will begin with a famous quote from Babaji of Bias, which all holy masters assert in one way or another. And it says this: love is the essence of our being. So unless we don't experience the real love of our own truth and our connection with the Lord, we will not be able to reach our goal in spirituality. Now the question arises about what is true love from the Lord's point of view. Indeed, what does it mean? There are many things written. There are many poems written historically. There are many verses recited, many accounts. But a true knower knows that it's very difficult to describe. But it can be narrowed into simple concepts that most human beings can understand and relate to. So on that basis, I'm going to try and explain what the concept of true love is from the Lord's point of view, not ours. Yeah, this is an important difference. So from the Lord's point of view, the first thing, which has been very beautifully spoken about by Michael earlier on, is about gratitude. One of the best ways to build a connection with the Master is to show gratitude for all that one has in life. Because we do not know how much struggle we have gone through to get to the human form. All this is hidden from us until we see within. If we had true knowledge of the journey we undertook to get to the human form, we would not treat it so lightly. It is a wonderful form because it's a means by which we can be rescued by the Holy Master of the Day and taken to our true home finally, after tens of millions of births in other forms. Just understanding this alone, upon initiation, one should be eternally grateful. In fact, the tongue should not tire in resting, in speaking this gratitude every moment of one's life, every waking moment. Because we have spent so long in other forms and in suffering and in experiences, even have been many times to hell and back before we attain the human form. No one has been spared. And when you see within, you will see that no one is spared. Everyone has undergone this human journey. So gratitude just for the initiation alone, even if nothing else is provided for you, is something that you should never tire of, no matter what your personal circumstances. Because after all, this life is just one chapter in the entire story account of your existence here. You have had many lives before, many mothers, many fathers, many brothers, many sisters, many associations. Why are these ones so important now? Only because you're living this life and this is your reality. And you take this to be your only reality. And from a human perspective, that is understandable. But masters all say one thing: know thyself as soul. Once we realize that we're the Atma, the soul, and not the Jeev, not the character we are playing, then we see things very differently. So the practice, spiritual practice, is about attaining that state of knowing. And once we know who we are, we understand where we come from. We understand our Creator, the Lord itself. So masters come here to give us this simple instruction: know thyself as soul, and practice this while you're living here on earth. Once you're initiated, there's nothing more to be done. Actually, there's no such thing as a path. In my experience, and Ishwarji confirmed this, the path is the master. The path is love. If you can attach yourself so firmly by love to the master, then this alone takes you home. Nothing else is necessary. But there's a problem. Most people do not understand what the masters mean by this type of love. So I'm going to clarify the three types of love that people experience, and to demonstrate that the fourth type of love, the love we're talking about from the Lord's point of view, is the one that's going to take you home. So I have to say that there are three parts to it. We spoke about gratitude just now, but there is obedience in time, meaning time. and helplessness. Now, just to finish off on the gratitude point of view, apart from the initiation process, we will also be given that life necessary to do our spiritual practice. It may not be to our material wealth liking for those who aspire to such things, or our grand status ideals, but it will always be helpful to our spiritual practice. So again, we do not realize how our life has been fashioned in such a way that it turns us away from the world. Michael beautifully said about suffering. And he said that, suffering turns you away from the world such that it makes you think about the Lord and dwell upon the Lord. So suffering is a blessing in disguise. Without suffering, no one can find the Lord. No one will be interested in the Lord. Just speak to any man who is successful in his life, who has everything, and say to him, you should go and find God. He said, no. He said, I'm very happy here. Let God come to me. That's his motto. So one who has dukh, suffering, such a one is blessed. The trouble is, he doesn't know how to use suffering to his advantage. Because he sees everybody else around him moaning and groaning, he assumes that's the only way to deal with suffering. But there's another way. There's a way of gratitude. Because suffering always makes you remember the Lord for those who are initiated. They are forced to turn to the Lord, and by doing so, they earn merit. And merit leads to grace. The system of merit I shall explain about in a moment, how it runs alongside the karmic system and how wonderful it is. So even when suffering comes your way, be grateful. Because one thing also is for sure, it could be worse. If you look at stories of other people going through something similar, they may have it a lot worse than you. How do you know that that wasn't meant for you and that the Master through initiation has not lightened your load? Because that's what Masters say, lightens a load up to 90%. How do you know that this time the Lord did not carry you through your suffering and only gave you 10% to face? You do not know. So be grateful regardless. So the next thing now is obedience. For those who are initiated, and I think most of the people here have been initiated by a perfect living Master, the single most important way to serve that Master is simple obedience. If the Master tells you to do something, you do not question it, you just do it. Why? Because time is the only thing you can really offer any Master here in this creation. Everything else, you could be lost and gained. Only time can never be regained once lost. So Masters know that the most valuable offering you have to them is time. So if you spend time in devotion, in seva, in meditation and contemplation, Master rewards this immensely because he knows how valuable time is in your life. So obedience to the Master by following the instructions given you at the time of meditation, as well as other instructions on how to live your life, should be followed without question. And do not concern yourself with thinking that I'm missing out on something else, because ultimately your role is to become enchanted by love of the Master. And this is the secret that all successful aspirants have attained. The third thing, which is not in your control, is helplessness. You see, when somebody falls in love, they don't plan to fall in love. They meet their beloved and they naturally fall in love. There is a helplessness in that love. It is not in their control. If you ask them not to love them, they say, I cannot help it. I have to love them. Similarly, if you say to love their friend in the same way, they say, I cannot make that love for that one. So this is very interesting. Anybody who's experienced love has always noticed they're helpless. This helplessness in love is the magic, is the secret that the Master gives you, the grace. So once you've observed the gratitude and the obedience and you live a moral way of life, Master then gives you the grace of a helpless lover for the beloved. Just like a needle cannot resist a magnet when the weight is taken off it. Once one becomes a lover, become helpless. And this is grace from the Lord. This is not in your hands. So these are the three methods by which one becomes a true lover of the Lord. And this is very helpful in performing the practices necessary to allow you to develop that love. And I can go a great deal about this subject from an experiential point of view, and also about the role of meditation versus contemplation. I will briefly say this, and Ishwarji has often talked about this in a certain way, but not so clearly. Meditation takes you only so far, and meditation is mechanical and practical. Far superior is contemplation. What does contemplation mean? Contemplation upon the beloved. Imagine you're a lover, and I say to you, go and think of your beloved for 2.5 hours a day. You'll look at me and laugh, says, I cannot do it. I say, why not? He said, because I'm thinking about them all the time. I can't help it. I'm a helpless lover or a hopeless lover. I can't help this. Now, contemplation is that. Meditation leads to contemplation. See, meditation is a reminding that the Lord exists in your life, that the Master is there. So you're told to sit for 2.5 hours to become a lover. People who only rely upon this do not make it. That's why only 3% of the Sangha get home in one lifetime, because others have not discovered this secret of contemplation. They ritually do the meditation. They do it in a ritual fashion, actually meditate on their clock, watching, or they have a good banter with themselves inside, chattering away. They're not lovers. But they think by doing this alone that they will attain the magic that they seek, the realization that they seek, and the love that they seek. But by following the 3 ways of love that I just explained, that leads to a helplessness state, that when that comes, nobody needs to tell you to think of the Master. Nobody needs to tell you to sit in meditation. You do so automatically. Now, there is no harm in the modern age of forcing yourself to sit if you do not have natural love. But if it's not supported by a lifestyle that supports that love, then it doesn't come to anything. And this is why a lot of people feel that they've failed. And it's sad that they do not understand the path of love. And they follow all these rituals and so on, and they love to talk amongst each other and exchange stories and everything. They love to hear everybody else's experience, but they don't want their own, really. Because if they wanted their own, they would thoroughly investigate this. Now, let me divide the love into 3 types of love, which are not conducive to spiritual love, but we see all the time. The first thing is material love. Material love, or an obsession with material things in the world, in fashion, in fancy cars or houses and gadgets and holidays, etc., is present when one does not have higher love in one's life. This type of love never lasts and does not feed one's higher love and of the mind and the soul, because we have a higher mind which is very similar to the soul. So all our activities in the physical world are for the mind, not for the soul. Soul doesn't need to do anything. Once higher mind is awakened, higher mind, they call it Krishna mind or Brahmandi mind, this is your friend. Once you make this mind its friend, it curbs the 2 lower minds of the intellect and the emotional mind. So by listening to things about higher concepts and absorbing them into oneself, one awakens higher mind, and the higher mind takes great interest in this because it wants to go to its own region. It wants to go to universal mind in Trikuti, top of the 2nd realm. So if you can support your higher mind through right understanding, right attitude, and right environment, then that mind will help you. Ultimately, though, it is the soul that we're interested in, but we need to cross the realm of mind to get there. So material love is not the way, because it's bound to the physical. Now, if we put our delight in the material world, then we cannot become spiritually evolved, because we're lowering our consciousness down to the material level. So we should practice slowly letting go of the material world. And I'm going to explain about how to do that in a moment. The next type of love, which is sadly seen, is pretend love. I see this quite a lot. I see people in certain company talking about love, but they have nothing in them. They're empty shells, but they feel that in order to feel kinship and accepted by the society they're in or the community they're in, They pretend that they're lovers and they talk wonderfly of love, but they don't have actual experience. And they're easily betrayed when a little dilemma comes their way, that they lose it, get angry, and so on. They're not real lovers. And the third type of love, which is very common, and which Ishpriji also referred to laughingly, and we spoke about this at length, about this dilemma, is emotional love. This is the most common expression of love by the lower mind, which is the seat of emotions. Now, this love is not enduring or stable, and is merely reactionary. So that means that this type of love is based upon some trigger, external trigger, an environment triggering that emotional love. So you start crying when you see the master, or you hear a story, you start weeping, and so on. This is very temporary, and the next moment you're out walking the dog, or you're shouting at the wife or something. So this love is not enduring and not stable, but it is the favorite form of love that most people display. If they stay at this level of love, which has no depth, nor is it born of high truth and faith, then they will never progress. They will never see the real love, the magic of true love. And true love is a helplessness of the lover for the beloved. So by practicing the 3 ways to love, one can become a true lover. In fact, it must become the obsession, the objective of one's life, as Michael said in his talk. If we do not put spirituality as the central focus of our life, and that everything else surrounds it, then how could we attain such a goal? Spirituality is an all or nothing thing. It can't be half on or half off. It's like a light switch. Either light is on or is off. So light disperses darkness, and true spirituality disperses ignorance. Anyone who has gone within and attained this state, and have crossed Parbrahm and seen the whole play, knows all this. We call it the great deception, because the mind is the great deceiver. Even in spirituality, even in love, it tricks you and makes you believe that you're a lover, and you're not. And the evidence is that the moment some disturbance comes your way, you straight away lose it. You get angry or distressed or sad or miserable. This is not true love then. You have to understand that unconditional love is unconditional. It means that there are no ways of bringing it down and no ways of raising it up. It is natural, it is real, and it is enduring. Now, this is the type of love we need to gain. And the 3 ways to become this type of lover are the means and the secret. There are other things as well, like healthy eating, right attitude, non-violence. In fact, out of all the precepts, there's only 2 things you need to observe. Do no harm to yourself, and do no harm to other living things. If you can go through the entirety of your life without this, by performing these things, you have done everything that's necessary in the material world. The Lord will take care of the rest. Very difficult thing to do. Harming yourself means, what do you put in your body? In Sikh, they say, Harimanda e sharir hai. It means that this is the temple of the living God, as Jesus put it. Now, if this is a temple of the living God and we're trying to go within, why would we put filthy food into ourselves? Food is not conducive to our health, simply because of taste. So we have to think, what is this food that we're putting in ourselves? Is this food poison to the body, or is it helpful? So that's why certain rules about not eating meat, eggs, and other things have been put in place for a very practical reason. But the other things, even within that, if you live on junk food, then your mind will become junk. If you live on poor quality food or rajasic food, like too much spice and things, your mind will become angry and spicy. That's why the masters universally say, eat sattvic food. Sattvic means balance. It's neither hot, nor cold, nor drying, nor moist. It's balanced. Such a one who takes such interest and care even in their diet is a true devotee. You see, if you really want something, you will do everything in your power to get it. You will not stop. You will not say, I'm prepared to do this, but not this. That's not true devotion. There's no half devotions here. If you say you want success in this lifetime, and many ask me, how is it possible? I say, well, these are the rules. The books say it. I'm just merely expanding upon it in a modern sense. But this is a very difficult path, like walking in the edge of a sword, as Guru Nanak said. One slip and you're in pieces. So a true devotee, a true bhakt of the master will be obedient, grateful, and follow helplessly in the footsteps of the saints. Now, having established the basis of true or divine love, as opposed to material, pretend, or emotional love, which are its poorer attributes, substitutes, now we have to look at the practicality of becoming an actual, not imaginary lover, and the reality of true devotion. First, I must say that attaining true love and high truth is to first make it become the single objective of one's life. It cannot be second to anything, because this attainment is designed to lift you beyond the physical body and beyond the realm of the mind, beyond mind and Maya. Therefore, it has to become the most important thing. If anything else, whether it's love for family, love for wealth, love for your car, your dog, comes above this, you cannot escape the realms of mind and Maya, the three worlds of karma. So this must become the single most important objective of one's life. In fact, you should run the whole life around this objective. And the Lord will support you. It's not so difficult as you may think. The second thing is right knowledge. It has to be supported by right knowledge from those who are truly enlightened, meaning seek the company of those who have attained this. For they speak of real knowledge. They do not need books to tell them. They do not repeat like parrots what others have said. They speak from direct experience and can be of real help to you. They're not only masters, they're enlightened ones. There are many of those who are enlightened who are not necessarily PLM. They have that experience and they can say to you, this is what has worked for me and for others, and therefore listen to them. The third thing is that knowledge has to be practiced earnestly. Whatever has been directed for you to do by the master, such as selfless, egoless seva, right or noble attitude, and finally, true contemplation or meditation upon the beloved, which is the object of your practice. This has to be practiced earnestly and sincerely, regularly. You see, the mind is a creature of habit. So let's say you say, oh, well, I'm working during the day, week, so I can't do much. But in the weekends, I'll make it up. It doesn't work like that. There has to be a daily reminder. And all that's needed actually is half an hour of meditation or contemplation before you go to sleep and half an hour in the morning. That's when you wake up. That sets you for the day. But you'll find that when you do the next thing, which is about living in Lord's will, that this very beautifully ties in and gives you a very nice day. And you start realizing that, hold on, this is actually real. This is not a blind faith. This is a living faith. So now we're going to talk about the magic of living faith. Now, the secret of living faith is to understand the difference between God's will and your will. Now, the Lord's will is what has been prepared for you to take you home. Now, this is unknown to you at the time. So at the time of initiation, you do not know by what means and manner you're going to be taken home. But if you have love for the master, you have trust and faith in the master, naturally go together. So by attaining this love state, you naturally have faith and trust. This makes it very easy. But in the meantime, the best way to follow living in God's will is to go with the flow. You see, our will is based upon calculation of the mind. It's based on limitations. We do not know actually what's good for us. We just say we want this and we want that, and also we want spiritual knowledge and spiritual truth. The two, you cannot serve two masters. You cannot serve God and Mammon. Choose one and serve that well. If you have chosen the way of the master, then you say, okay, since you, the master, know better than I, why should I follow my own will? If you really believe this, you'll say, okay, Lord, you take care of everything. Ishwarji used to beautifully talk about the deal. hand over all your problems and cares and worries, and Master will take care of it all and give you joys and so on. But the difficulty is that you have to keep your side of the bargain. Now, initially, most people say, well, this is easy. I don't want problems and hassles and so on. But you'll be surprised how conditioned you are to expect misery, to even celebrate it, to even embrace it in your life, to prove a point that, yes, life is miserable and everybody is bad. Yeah, and the world is a wrong place with all these wars going on and plagues and so on. Yes, this is all bad. But this is not the way of the Lord. This is not how the Lord sees it. The Lord sees it very differently. He sees the law, the creation, being played out very beautifully, even that of a villain. There's no difference from the Lord's point of view between a villain and a saint. In actual fact, everyone is equal. Everyone is playing the part. Because if we do not have drama in this creation cannot exist. If we want absolute bliss, we go to Sach Khan, don't leave. But we came here for an experiential experience. We wanted to see what it's like not to be perfect. And we wanted to play drama. That is the state of Satpurush. There's another story about creation itself and how Satpurush manifested these realms and why he did so. That's a story for another time. But you are part and parcel of Satpurush. You're a soul of the divine. There's no difference between the ocean and the drop. In fact, as Rumi says, the ocean is in a drop. Not the drop is part of the ocean. That's the wrong way of looking at it. The ocean has become the drop to play a part here. So, play your part well. Maybe that of a villain even. But do so in the Lord's name. Whatever you do wholeheartedly in the Lord's name still takes you home. There is no consequence. In fact, the Lord makes it all smooth. So, this is why there are great stories at the time of Great Master even, where villains like the robbers and the wrestler who used to rob satsangis eventually became his most devoted disciple. I won't bother with the story, it's been told many times. You could always hear that from somebody else because I haven't got that much time here. But the point being that Great Master welcomed villains as equally as he mentioned was welcomed good people, because he did not see the character. He wasn't interested in what character they're playing, because that's been ordained. What he was interested in is, where is this soul going? Are they now going up on the ascending loop back home, or are they still descending? So they may be a noble human being, but if they're descending, the Lord will say, your time has not yet come. But if they're ascending, and even if they're villain, the Lord says, I will initiate you and I'll look after you. So this takes the ego out of it. No one should be proud that they have been chosen for anything of their own merit. They should say, the mere fact is that now their soul is ascending back up. And that's the whole truth of it. In fact, when you cross into Parbrahm, you will see Master pulling the souls like if they're on strings, slowly at a speed that they can cope with. Either those ones who voted for accelerated karma, he pulls them a bit faster, so they're paying 6 years of karma every day. Or the ones who just want to take it steady over 4 lifetimes, he pulls them that rate. But nothing is of their own effort. In fact, none of your effort counts. The reason why we're talking about some kind of effort is just to make it smoother for you. Not that your progress, that you can influence your progress. You cannot do that. But what you can do is make an easier ride of it. Either you could be dragged because the Master won't stop the promise that was made that you will go home, kicking and screaming if necessary, or you can jump on the wagon and take a ride with the Master. So the whole point of all these talks, the whole point of all Master's discourses are to say to you, look here, you've been initiated. You're going home regardless. Thankfully, it's not down to you. Because if it's down to your character, no one will be worthy, no one will go home. So first, eliminate the fact that you have anything to do with this. That is the ego. But then Masters do sometimes praise you here and there, only because he knows that the mind can be a real difficult beast to master. So if the mind is not given some due, it may rebel and may delay even further. So Masters say, very good, you're doing very good meditation, very good seva, very good this. Knowing full well that it doesn't matter, because none of it's in your hands. That's the ultimate truth. This is Santmat version 3.0. that Ishwarji just started at the end of his time to introduce and asked us to continue. But what can we do when we're here? If we have the capacity within us to follow the simple instructions given by the Master and to do what I've just mentioned today, the very simple parts of it, you'll find that something will overwhelm you. We call this grace. Now, I'm going to just briefly talk about grace versus merit, because there's a lot of misunderstanding about grace itself. Some people appear to have more of it than others. And they say, oh, he's very lucky, and so on and so forth. You see, karma operates along the rules of thought and action create a consequence. We call it retribution, or the law of cause and effect. This operates regardless of what else is going on. Now, alongside this karmic system, and karma determines your destiny and the occurrences that are going to happen in life, there is something called merit, spiritual merit. What's spiritual merit? Masters in the past have not often explained this clearly, simply because it's often lumped into the whole system of karma. But it is very different. Spiritual merit occurs only when you do selfless seva for the Lord. Now, it doesn't have to be just for the Master. It can be helping your neighbor. It can be helping your family. It can nishkam karma, performing selfless service that's karma free. Now, such devotion to the Lord through his creation, as well as to the Lord itself, directly through meditation and contemplation, or to yourself by taking care of this temple, realizing that this is a gift from the Lord. So be careful what you subject it to, what you put in it, what you put on it. There should be nothing that harms this body, because it's a gift from the Lord. And if you claim to be a lover of the Lord and so grateful, why would you harm your own body? So these are important points to bear. And all realized souls have come to this understanding. So now the continuance of living the Lord's will actually leads to surrender. But how should we live in the Lord's will? There's quite a list that I could go through, but I'm going to try and really simplify it for you. The most important thing is going with the flow and not instigating anything. You see, when you instigate something, you're using your will. When you react to what comes your way, that's the Lord's will. You're reacting to the Lord's will in the appropriate way with the philosophical understanding you have of the spiritual path. So when you wake up in the morning, a lot of people have said to me, well, if I don't instigate things, then nothing will happen. I said, try it. So the challenge I give to people is this. I said, just for 7 days, you're not going to lose out. Try to live in the Lord's will for 7 days. This means that from the moment you wake up, go with what comes your way. For example, when your body says, I'm hungry, eat. When you need to go to the toilet, go to the toilet. When somebody calls you on the phone, deal with it. When work beckons you, go to work. When the children ask something, deal with it. You will find your day is so filled with duties, responsibilities, and activities that you'll think, well, where did I ever find the time to exercise my own will? The fact is that when you exercise your own will, you are doing so at the expense of your duty in some way, whether that duty is devotion to the Lord or whether it is dealing with family responsibility or something. Something has to give. And that has to be put back onto the stack and has to be dealt with in this lifetime. So this is why often at the end of the life, people suffer terribly. Particularly satsangis often tend to, because they've used so much of their own will that they've got a backlog of karma to clear before their death. So they have terrible disease, terrible difficulties, and so on. Sometimes even during life, satsangis seem to suffer more than others, unless they've asked for it. See, if they're smart, they've asked for accelerated karma, then they get through the job quicker. But most don't. So they're just suffering because they've used their own will, they've not followed the Lord's will, and therefore there's a backlog of things that need to be sorted in this life. And this is a carry on into the next life. But our objective is not to do so. From a satsangi point of view, Master wants us to clear everything in this lifetime. So by hook or by crook, that has to be dealt with. Whether it's all thrown at the end of the life as a bundle of problems, or whether it's steadily through, just depends on the arrangement. So Now, when you live in the Lord's will, just for 7 days, you will find that your life goes very beautifully. What usually was a problem no longer comes. No longer you are being harassed. No longer are you stressing. You feel that the weight has been lifted off your shoulder. You're happier, you're smiling. The consequence of this means that when you deal with people at work and the people around you, they smile back. And you think, that's unusual. I never usually get that reaction. Why are people being so nice to me? But he said, oh, it's a fluke, 7 days. That's it. So I said, okay, if you're successful for 7 days and you've had an easier time of it, try another 7 days. It might be a fluke. Have another go. Then you will find, oh, this 7 days works just as well. This is interesting, but it cannot be, because since I was in education school, we were told to take charge of our life, take action and do everything ourselves. You don't try it, rely on anybody, not even a God. So you say, okay, let me try another 7 days. And then you find that works very beautifully. And then you might think to yourself, this is very interesting. I've had a very good time, probably the best couple of weeks in my life for a while. And strange things happen to me, strange coincidences or miracles. And you think, but are these coincidences? Are they miracles? Is it my imagination? Let's try another 7 days. So try another 7 days. And you find that actually, as time goes on and you do more of it, the wonders become even more wonderful. So instead of decreasing, your grace, the blessings that come your way increase. Because what are you doing? You're gaining spiritual merit. So when you ask for something from the Lord looks into your spiritual bank account and says, I'd really love to give everybody everything they ask for in prayer. But let me look at the account. Yes, they have the merit. Okay, grant it to them. If the spiritual merit is there, they say, sorry, next time, try again. That's why not all prayers are answered. Some prayers are answered, some are not. It simply depends on the merit system. So this merit system is really important. Now, the advanced state of this living in God's will, once you've perfected this and you're really living happily, and you think, wow, if this is just the beginning of ultimate enchanted living, what is it like to completely surrender to the Lord? How amazing would life be? See, Ishwarji did that, for example. He completely surrendered, therefore, he was in total happiness all the time. He did not care for anything. Many people who spend a lot of time with Ishwarji know what he was like. He was very flippant and very blasé with life. It didn't seem to bother him. Even if he broke some rules, some laws, he didn't care. Nothing ever came of it, because he had totally surrendered to the will of his master. So in that way, he devoted his entire life to seva. Now, that didn't mean that he abandoned his family and he abandoned his work. What it meant was that everything he did was offering to the master. And he had that constant devotion because it worked. Do you think someone as intelligent as Ishwarji, who studied psychology in Harvard, would have continued with this for so many years if it didn't work? We know his attitude was find out and search things, investigate. He had that. He even told his stories himself. So the fact that there's an example of somebody who's doing this, among others you may not know, then you have to say to yourself that maybe there is something in this, and maybe I should give it a go. But naturally, your mind will resist at first and say, no. All our teaching in schools, our parents, our friends tell you, you must take charge, you must be a control freak, you must do this. It's interesting because you never considered the other way until you meet somebody who lives in the Lord's will truly. And then you meet somebody who's surrendered and you look at their life and compare it to yours. And they seem to have a happy way of life. I have surrendered completely to the Lord. So I lived a called enchanted life. If I was to tell you exactly how my life pans out and how it is now, you would not believe me. Because it is beyond the comprehension of your mind to understand how the Lord intervenes and takes care of all the details without you having to do anything, even paying your bills without income. It is quite remarkable how it all comes about. And to be honest, if everybody knew this secret, initiates, even non-initiates would want to do this. Who doesn't want to live a worry-free life where they hand everything over to the Lord and they just enjoy it? That's the deal that Ishwarji made, and it's available to everyone. Just a few little provisions I've mentioned, but if you have the capacity in your heart and you're ready to really want to know the benefit of spiritual life, not just look at Ishwarji in the distance and say, isn't it marvelous to watch somebody else? You have the same right as he. There's no difference. You're both souls of the divine. The difference is he has attained it, and he was telling you how to do it. And you like to listen to the stories, you like to listen to the satsang, but you do not embrace it. Therefore, you do not benefit. So what I see all the time are people, even satsangis, have been practitioners for 20, 30, 40 years, still in the same desperate situation. And I say, why? Look at this wonder of creation. Isn't this wonder a wonder in itself? The fact that the Lord created such a creation, would he not take care of your life if you turned over to him? If he can take care of the entire creation, including the birds and the fields, he feeds them, would he not look after you? Jesus very beautifully said, seek ye first the kingdom of God, meaning your spiritual practice, and then all things else shall be given unto thee freely. That's a promise he made. And Ishwarji made a promise of the deal. Hand over all your responsibilities and you shall be rewarded with the bliss of the Lord. So this is all I'm asking you to do. Many have done this. And so it's perfectly possible. This is not the product of wild imagination or hearsay. There are people alive today who has actually done this, myself included, among others. We live a way of life that you would not believe. Despite all the troubles in the world, we seem to be remote from it. And this is possible for everyone. There's nothing special about me. There's nothing special about any of them. The difference is they dared to embrace it. You could say they had something special, courage. Courage to take life and lead their way, rather than be a puppet or a sheep. They decided to take part, they take charge of their life again, but with the Lord's blessing behind it. And the moment they use the Lord behind this, then they become successful. It's a wonderful existence. It's an enchanted life. It really is a fairy tale life. Ishwarji lived a fairy tale life. He did it so we can see an example. So did those who are enlightened. Whoever is enlightened, they live this fairy tale life, but they do not publicize it simply because nobody would believe them and will think that they're crazy. But those who are meant to come into their company will hear such things, take delight in it, and want to do it when they are ready. It's not for everybody. Some people want to live miserably. Misery is their companion. And they would say, "O misery, thou art my lifelong companion. Where shall thou go if I abandon you? Therefore, I will remain your friend." Some people love drama and misery. So this is not for everybody, but I'm hoping that those of you who listen today, some of you will think about this and will say, actually, why not try it for ourselves? Here's somebody just telling us, but it's not our experience. Why not make it your experience? It is perfectly possible. This is not some wild dream. Otherwise, masters will not come here and spend their entire life in a human form telling you about it. I can tell you personally that it works. And others as well have followed this. So on that basis, I think that will conclude our talk for today. I have said already probably too much, and I'm really grateful for the organizers for allowing me to speak so long. But I have a real passion about this because Ishwarji has told me to tell the truth, the entire truth of what works and what doesn't in the modern age. So I'm a servant of the Lord, a servant here of Ishwarji. I've also been initiated by Babaji of Bias. Babaji has also commanded me to do the same. So has Supreme Master Ching Hai. So in this capacity, I serve the three masters, whom I see as equal, as I see everyone as equal. I do not see anyone higher or lower. I do not see myself as any better than anyone. I just see myself as greatly fortunate that the Lord has taken pity upon me and has given me this knowledge. And what the Lord gives to me freely, I freely share with others. I have no interest in this creation other than to do the Lord's seva. So may the Lord bless you all, and thank you for listening. If you have any questions, you're most welcome.
Thank you so much, Brother James. That was a beautiful talk. And for the past 2.5 years, we've been serving the Lord here, having daily satsang. This group is a very advanced group, and we all feel incomplete, and we all come hungry every day. As if anybody of us feels complete, God will not pour anymore. The ego will stop. and we all feel incomplete. We all come here to grow spiritually every day. So, and there's levels and levels and levels. So join us, please, and grow with us. And every day, people can join, can say something, even if they're not on the schedule, can have 5 minutes, and just the presence that when two or more gather in my name, there I am. So it's an intense time where Master really pours on us so much grace every day. And every day a veil is removed. Every day there is a step forward towards totality. So please come as much as you want and enjoy the cup of nectar.
Yes,
That's
James,
poured by
definitely
Ishwar.
come frequently. Thank you.
Yes.
I will as much as possible, but we have a lot of seva here projects, but I certainly will, and I'm very pleased with the seva that you're doing. Master is also very pleased. So keep up the good work, and I hope you make that progress that you seek within your heart. Remember, there are no failures in Satma. There's only delays. So you can either delay your progress, or you can go with the flow, speed it up in the sense as you see it. But
Yeah,
there's no failure. No one fails.
Yes. Master blessed the satsang when he was alive, because we started it when he was alive, and he sent his blessings to all of us. So he gave us this satsang, and there's so many people who do seva here, and it keeps God's foot on our head, on our mind. It keeps our mind controlled every day, and we keep going forward in Master's will. So that's good that we keep progressing every day in love.
Can I ask one question to Brother James?
Yes.
Yes, Neil, welcome.
Yeah, my salutations to you, Brother James. My question is, you mentioned something very important, that we should live in the Lord's will and try not to instigate, not try to go with our mind's instigations. Sometimes it becomes very difficult to differentiate between the two. Like, for example, you gave an example that if you're hungry, go eat food, right? So that's God's will. But there could be temptations of the mind which seem like cravings or hunger of some sort. Like, should we just give in to all those cravings, assuming they are going with the flow, or should we, how can we differentiate between what is truly God's will, especially if it's of an inner nature, like something like my wife asking me something or my child asking me something is more explicit, so I can know that if an event came my way in the external world, it's probably God's will. However, if a thought came in my mind which ultimately leads me to doing some things which probably are not moral or good for me on the spiritual path, how do I how do I decide that this is not really God's will, this is my own mind playing tricks with me? Can you shed some light on that?
Yes, most certainly, brother. You see, as you mentioned, these involve the mind. Therefore, we know that they're generated by the mind. Now, the way to tackle the mind is through distraction. You see, you can't detach from the cravings and the attachments of the mind unless you're attached to something greater. For initiates, it's a lot easier because they have their beloved master. Now, if you're in doubt, always ask the master for help. Whenever you feel that, Master, show me some sign, tell me something. And you'll start recognizing either the intuition or the signs around you to tell you what you should do. Because sometimes you do not know whether that particular craving or something is good for you or not. You do not have the capacity. So you invoke Master's grace. Now, eventually, intuition develops so much within you through this that you become wise. And your own wisdom of higher understanding will tell the mind, no, it separates oil from water. It recognizes the truth from non-truth. So in the beginning, if you have this dilemma and you're not sure, then simply ask the master, please help me, show me a sign, show me something. It doesn't matter if you make a mistake in the beginning. Master doesn't expect you to be perfect. All he wants to see is that you're making an effort. And then Master says, bring me the efforts and I'll turn them into successes. So Master knows your position, knows your weaknesses. In fact, we're more hard on ourselves than Master is on us. That's the trouble. We beat ourselves up. So if you make a mistake and you realize that, learn, brush it off, brush the dust off, and carry on regardless. Do not dwell in the past. Do not think, I have done this, I have done that. This is all karma. You had no choice. Whatever has been laid out for you, the script has been written, you must take birth and fulfill it. If you attach yourself to the character, then you will suffer the consequences of that character. If you understand that you're Atma, that you're soul of the divine, then you will start thinking from a higher perspective. And you'll say, so what? You know, Master's favorite mantra, you become carefree. Then even if you do something wrong, it is forgiven. Our beloved Master Ishwarji was known to go to casinos, for example, and he used to play in the casino. Now, clearly, this is not in the precepts of Santma, you know, of gambling and so on. But what people did not know is that he never spent the money. He used to call it casino money. So he used to just play with it and just give it away. He used to have fun with the creation. You see, he knew how to handle it. Now, we do not have that level of wisdom yet to understand right from wrong, truth from non-truth. So we have these dilemmas. So please ask Master for help in any situation and try to be receptive to the signs. If no way of finding out, then do it. Fulfill the desire, get it out of your system. But say to Master, please help me next time not to have it. Either way you win. There's only winners on this path if you involve the right attitude and the Master.
Thank you, Brother James.
Wonderful.
Just wanted to say thank you, Brother James, for coming and blessing us with your satsang today, and we hope you'll come again.
Most welcome.
Thank you so much, Brother James. Yeah, we look forward for having you again.
Yes, and thank you for your seva.
Thank you. Anyone else have a question for Brother James?
He answered everything in his lecture. Wonderful.
Cool.
That's
I have
good.
a
I mean,
question. Can
yes.
you hear me? Michael, can you hear me?
Yes.
Uh,
Hi.
Brother James, you mentioned grace versus merit. And
Yeah.
I just want to see if I understood this correctly. From what you said, I understood that grace is extended based on your spiritual merit. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, grace is the consequence of merit, spiritual merit, while retribution is the consequence of karma. So karma gives an exact eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, retribution. In merit, spiritual merit, grace or blessings are the result of spiritual merit. Grace is always positive, beneficial, and improving. It always does wonders for you. So one should try to get as much grace as possible. I mean, there's many shabads sung about the grace of the Lord and so on, but very little information on how to get it. So I'm trying to put together a practical way that actually works in the modern day, that earns the grace, that earns the merit that gives you grace. So there's simple process of devotion, as I've explained, through selfless or egoless seva, and it doesn't mean you have to do it for the Master. It could be for anybody. The other thing is non-judgment. Do not think yourself better or worse than anyone else. Never judge. You see, everybody is innocent. There's no guilty person here. Master never sees guilt. He just sees actors on the stage playing their part. They all believe the part they're playing is real. They're all playing the part to the best of their ability, maybe that of a villain even. So who are you to judge? If ye judge, so shall ye be judged, as Jesus said. So don't judge. Another simple thing we can do. Another thing is do our spiritual practice as best as we can. Don't beat yourself up about it. Do the best you can. But what you can do with absolute sincerity. And Master will turn all these things into reward. This is how it's always been. You might imagine in the past that some disciples were so perfect and so on compared to today, because you read a few stories like in Tales of the Mystic East from the RS books and so on, and you hear all these wonderful stories of how people had absolute faith in their Master and the Master rescued them and so on. These are just stories. They're there to give us an understanding of how great the Master is and what they can do for you. They may not apply to you in this present lifetime. It doesn't mean you should copy them, because right in your very life, you will have daily situations where you can exercise the right attitude and devotion, even in the smallest scale, and build up slowly. This is a fun path. In fact, the reason you came into creation was to enjoy the ride back home. People think they come in here to witness all the dramas. Yes, that was there when you left, but the most exciting part, and this is why masters don't immediately take you home, is the rediscovery of who you are, from a beggar to the king. You see yourself as a beggar here, begging from the master. The master laughs and looks at you and says, but you're the king. Why are you begging of me? Okay, let's play this game. I'm master, you disciple. Let's start that way. But when you get to Parbrahm, you and the master merge, become one. So then you realize there was no difference between you and the master. It just looked that way when you were here. So see everybody as equal as yourself. Don't put yourself down and don't put anyone higher, but they're all variations on the theme. Each soul is a different viewpoint of the Lord, to see the creation from a particular angle, which is why they were created. Infinite souls were created so that the Lord could witness his glory and his wonder from infinite angles. That's the beauty of creation. And in fact, when you get to a certain point, you'll find that all were other selves, were alter egos of yourself. That, in fact, you played all the parts. Once somebody said to me, well, if I had this choice and I came down here for the adventure, why did I pick this life? Why did I pick this path? You see, and quite rightly so, they can object. Because if you look at it as isolation, it does look like a bad deal. You know, there you are, a beggar, a pauper, next to you in the palace of the king. So it looks bad. But what you do not realize is that actually all parts are played by you. And in order for the drama to take shape, you have to play all the parts, but make it look like you're all individuals. It's only when you get to a certain stage that you suddenly realize, oh my God, that was a good time. We all had a good time here. Wow, what a wonderful drama. But the most exciting was unfolding your own mystery. I cannot tell you enough. There are no words to tell you enough the delight of uncovering your own truth slowly, slowly, slowly. Don't rush it. There's much more enjoyment in doing something slowly with full engagement than rushing through. We are so impatient here. We've waited millions of births to become just in a human form, and we want salvation straight away. We want to miss all the fun, what we came here for. The fun is uncovering who we are slowly, slowly as we go home, until we find out that you're the very Lord itself. And that is a wonder that you would not want to take away from anyone. So the masters will never take that pleasure away from you. So just go with it. Just go with the flow. Have complete faith and trust in Master, and let's see if he straightens your paths. You know, and that's all I can recommend to you. And it works. So I hope that's answered your question.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Are we done?
That was a beautiful answer. Thank you so much.
It's Master's answer. Remember, I'm just an instrument. So if that's it now, then I will bid you good night here in the UK and other parts of the world. And I'll let you think about what's been spoken. Remember, please do not look upon me anything other than your brother. Yeah? Well, because we're all the same. The difference is I may have a little more knowledge. It doesn't make me any better. Take the instruction that Master has given you through me and make it your own. Become that truth yourself. That is the real wonder. And then all these beautiful flowers in the Master's garden I see before me will blossom. I have no greater pleasure than watching these flowers blossom. And this is Master's words to you. So God bless and goodbye.